one of the weirdest things in superhero movies is Howard the Duck. And part of that is just because of how strangely put together that movie is and how odd of a screenplay that is. But also because, so 1986, after Stan Lee's been spending a lot of time going around trying to get live action superhero movies made, including and maybe mostly Ant-Man for whatever reason. He was just obsessed with this idea of getting an Ant-Man movie made. That's also odd, but I can't really call it development. It never happened. The first blockbuster Marvel movie is Howard the Duck. That's bizarre. Not and like you got to put yourself back in the time and place. In comics, Howard the Duck was oddly popular, but he's not even a superhero. It's like the first big Marvel movie is not based on a superhero character, and I would argue that that is a superhero movie, not just because Howard the Duck is in Marvel Comics, but like the way that movie is structured, it is a superhero movie. But that character in comics, not exactly a superhero, but also counterintuitive to make a thing about a like kind of cartoonish character that you're gonna have to put a person in an animal costume to do. And it's also weird that it's the same year as Transformers the movie, which was also Marvel at the time, and then we don't get another one until Blade, who's a character like another major motion picture. You got like 1990 Captain America and the unreleased Fantastic Four movie, but like big top tier blockbuster superhero movie based on a Marvel comic. Like Spider-Man was supposed to happen, was in development hell forever. X-Men the same way. People don't even know what Blade is. We don't get a major property anybody's heard of until 2000 with X-Men. That is wild.
Well, not only that, this is obviously, varying degrees. Like, this had it way more so, but it's almost got like a Green Lantern thing, right? Where like it gets super popular in the comics, and then we do a movie, and it like cuts off all the popularity, like by the head right there and then.
Yeah,
and,
nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, it just kind of floundered. Obviously, to a lesser degree with Green Lantern, but Howard the Duck is like Aquaman after that movie, in terms of being made fun of.
And then it's weird that, and I could, I guess, tack this on as a secondary one. I don't think this is on my list, but now that I'm thinking about it, Austin, and we talked about this a little bit in the history streams, DC has a better track record for this, but not with its mainstream superheroes outside of Batman and Superman. So when DC will adapt a like mainstream superhero thing like a Watchmen. I guess Watchmen's a bad example because I didn't do great at the box office, but like a V for Vendetta or a Wanted or something.
The Losers.
Yeah, those things typically do pretty well and give more like general audience awareness of the comics, and the comics will sometimes, especially in the case of Watchmen, that's weird, right? Like Watchmen didn't do great at the box office, but that created new awareness for Watchmen, so it sold like crazy. Like arguably, Watchmen in trade probably sold better for its medium because of that movie than the movie did at the box office. So like DC has a great track record with that, as long as you're not a mainstream superhero.
Well, I think it was like all the trailer too. Like I heard that the trailer like really sparks off people buying that book, and then it obviously just didn't really translate to the box office.
And when I made my comic shop documentary back in 2014, a lot of the shop owners spoke to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard Didio talk about that.
They talked about how people came in and like ran them out of that book.
Mm-hmm.
Stone Casper,
I guess they didn't like it because they didn't go to see the movie.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if they were the only ones, it's not going to be big numbers. Because
no, of course,
for comic shops, big numbers. But I mean, if everybody that went to a comic shop and bought Watchmen went to the theater, but they were the only ones that did, I mean, that does $3 million opening weekend. Stone Gassman, $10 super chat. That movie did better than that, but you see what I'm saying. Weirdest story for me. Is it true? Chris Reeve refused to do Superman 3 because of the weak script and was replaced by Tony Danza. The director refused to shoot Danza and begged Reeve to return. I have never heard that.
I've never heard that either.
I'd have to look into that. That's interesting. If that's, I'll make a note of that, and I'll look into that. And I don't know when we'll ever talk about it, but I'll look into that.
Yeah, the main thing I know off of Superman 3 is there's the whole thing where I'm trying to remember who the writer was. It was like a Silver Age, like 50s Superman writer. They like bring him in to be, the kind of DC representative to make sure things are going well in that movie. But they bring him on like after most of everything with Richard Pryor is shot. So he comes in and it's like, oh well, it's like too late to fix this.
Oh
I can
wow.
advise for like this other stuff.
Okay, so I found a Collider article about this. I guess I'll bring it up now because I found it pretty quick. In a 2023 sit down, so this is real recent, with Yahoo in celebration of Superman 3's 40th anniversary. Funny, I don't think that was screened in theaters for the anniversary, was it?
I don't know.
People just wouldn't have been flooding to the theater to see Superman 3. Because I don't think we got it for Star Trek
Probably
5
not.
either. And I really wanted it because I've been trying to see as many of the TOS movies in the theater when they get re-released as I possibly can. And Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan, Voyage Home, and Search for Spock, actually. All four of those I've seen in the theater. And they've come back out. 5 and 6, I've never seen those come back. And I've never seen the Superman 3 or 4 come back. Shocking. Anyway, Ilya Salkind and producer Pierre Spangler debunked some longstanding rumors about the series' third entry, including that Tony Danza might have replaced Reeve. This is BS, noted Spangler, who noted that Reeve's initial contract was for 7 different films. Yeah, that's a good point. He's contracted. For Superman 3, there was a negotiation of that original agreement, but it was a negotiation where both parties knew they had to agree to something. And he says, never did I cast Tony Danza. I wanted Chris Reeve, and he was willing to do it. I actually met him in New York with the script of Superman 3, and he liked it. Sometimes rumors are simply that, rumors. I bet there's a little more to that story. I doubt very seriously if Christopher Reeve didn't have some reservations about that script.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I've only heard him talk badly about 3, and that's part of why he takes more of the reins for 4.
Yeah, but also he might have been doing that more retroactively than as it got made.
True,
But
too.
but that he would sign off on it without any reservations. I mean, there's enough issues with that script. I have a hard time buying that. But
Hmm. It's also weird. I didn't know he was signed on for 7 movies. This is just kind of funny that you have that, like they signed him on for 7, and one of the pitches before they went with Man of Steel was that 7-movie pitch by Matthew Vaughn.
yeah, which is a great pitch, by the way.
Hmm. Yeah, it is absolutely.
Chewbacca's Lover, $10 super chat. I'm sorry. Do you want to say something else, Les?
No. It's okay.
Did
Go
you
for
know
it.
Zack Snyder made the advertising for Watchmen misleading on purpose? He wanted people to think it was a normal comic film and be blown away when they see it and how sophisticated it was. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know that. I mean, if it's
there's
true, that's rough because it's way less sophisticated than the book. But
but also beyond that, there's two weird sides to this, right? Because on the one hand, I go, well, I think the reason that it was so provocative, and I mean, even though it didn't do the numbers I thought it was going to do at the box office, people were really impressed with that trailer and wanted to see it, was because it didn't look like a typical superhero movie. But then the other side of that is all the stories I heard about families taking their kids not realizing how rough it was. So if that's what he was after, it worked on some people, but it seems clear to me that that wasn't what that trailer was after. So I don't understand that.
yeah, I just don't remember the advertising well enough. Like I vaguely remember parts of the teaser. Like I remember they had like the Dr. Manhattan exploding and stuff like that, but that's kind of all I remember. And there was like a big song they play in it, but I don't remember what it is at this point.
It was Smashing Pumpkins End as the beginning as the end.
Oh, okay.
Which yeah, the advertising for that was huge for me. I remember the first time I saw that, and that was a big moment for me and my wife. It was dating at the time because she typically doesn't like violent movies like that, and she was so impressed with that trailer she had to go and loved it. She to this day is still loves that movie, and but is hilariously not interested in Snyder whatsoever besides that and 300. I
Mm.
Because like I finally got her to watch BVS, and only in a commentary we were talking over it, and she's like, I don't understand how this movie got greenlit. So yeah, anyway, it's very funny. Austin, go ahead and throw us one.
Oh God, I feel like there's like 3 or 4 ways I can pivot off of exactly what we were just talking about. Um, I guess I'll throw out another Superman one. Uh, this I guess is partly weird in how it affects things moving forward and things that will probably never happen. But I put on J.J. Abrams' Superman Flyby, which is partly how we get both Cavill and Brandon Routh as Superman, because they both auditioned for that, and both directors for their movies end up seeing their tapes, and then they audition again for their movie. As well as then, decades later, he gets brought in to do that Superman film that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But I just think it's interesting that JJ is kind of like right in there with Superman in the post 2000s, I guess. I think that is maybe late 90s,
But never ends
early
up actually
2000s,
making one.
but never ends up happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, I was gonna say I don't know if he had actually gotten to make that it would have worked out any worse than Superman Returns, but it would have, even if it performed well, it would have in the sense that it would set this weird precedent of a Superman movie that doesn't have any Superman stuff in it.
Well, his Superman movie sounds really stupid.
Yeah, because like
uh,
if memory serves,
yeah.
his was that movie where Krypton doesn't even explode.
No, I don't think Krypton does explode, and they have Kryptonian kung fu because of the Matrix.
Yeah,
And Superman's on Earth, and I think he dies at some point, and then Jor-El sacrifices himself to bring Superman back to life. It's all just really weird. But that was also supposed to be Brett Ratner, who then obviously goes on to make X3. And then he gets kicked off, and then they replace him with Mick G because they were just like really going off for those generic 2000s directors.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the unmade projects are interesting,
Mhm.
but and I guess you can technically call them like weird developments, but more like weird in developments, as it were, and then things that never
Mhm.
get made. But it's hard to tell the exact impact that they have. Besides just, well, they didn't get made, so this other thing did. But certain of them you can point to, here's a plot point that some producer remembered or was always going back to, and
Mhm.
finally got it in this other movie. Like that happens
Absolutely.
sometimes.
No, absolutely. Well, and the only reason I included that was also because, like I said, that's how you get both of the next two Superman
Yes.
actors.
So that's a way that
Their
it
names getting
concretely.
involved.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get in the weeds too much with unmade superhero
Yeah, no,
movies.
that I don't have a ton of like unmade movies. Like that makes on my list because of that specifically.
I and I mean, I'm not telling you can't bring those up, but some of them I just don't know what the impact would be. Like that's a hard and
Yeah.
fast. Like here's the impact. Another one, obviously, another really obvious one would be Superman Lives, because then there's a bizarre homage to it in Flash, and like you never could have imagined you'd actually finally see that version in a
Mhm.
movie, such as it was.
No, and over that specifically, I would put more so like Nicolas Cage's history with superhero
Yes.
films in general.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do have on my list, so I'll just throw that out there just because it's basically come up. But
Well, and the
uh,
weird relationship uh, with movies and Death of Superman, because because that was so popular in comics, as
mhm.
obsessed as Warner seemed to be with getting that on the big screen somehow, we don't get it until BVS, and like that's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, like I said, it's also in Flyby. and it kind of seems like we might go to that place in Returns. It's like
Yeah,
it is definitely something that weighs on their mind. I don't remember if it's in that old Batman versus Superman pitch, but
yeah, I
there
don't
is
know.
stuff from the movie that they made that is in that original version too.
But yeah, it's so tacked on in BVS. It's like we've got to finally get it in there somewhere because we've been trying to do this forever. And I
Mhm.
wonder if that was any kind of a studio mandate or if that was just so many different people that have tried to make Superman movies really wanted to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Stone
I would
Gassman
love to know like the behind the scenes of some of that DCU stuff.
Stone Gassman puts in a $5 super chat and says, "Thanks for the clarification on the Danza story. What is true is that Margot Kidder and Richard Pryor were in a relationship during 3 and stayed in a London hotel. I did not know that."
Well, that's where she was. That's
That's
one of
where
my
she
favorite
was.
things in those movies is just her popping up and being like, "I'm leaving, bye."
She has a cameo in 3 to write herself out so that we can do stuff with Lana Lang.
Yep,
It's so odd.
bizarre.
Okay, I'm gonna go with I don't know. Do I want to try to be anything like related to what we're talking about, or just go in a completely different direction?
I mean,
Well,
it's up to you. I was like, I can easily segue in different ways off of what we
yeah, I can too.
talked about
Well, I
before.
I did write BVS everything about it. That's on my list.
Just it's a baffling development.
Yeah, it's such. I mean, I wrote 5 hours on how completely baffling that whole thing was. Uh, but yeah, just everything about it.